The first cry came just as the Mater D glanced down at her shoes, not at her face. Not at the twins, her shoes worn flats, rain-speckled. The kind that told a story about long shifts, longer nights. And then the second cry followed louder. Sharper, echoing against the marble floors of one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Heads turned. Conversations paused mid-sentence. A woman in diamonds frowned openly. A man in a tailored suit muttered something about inappropriate. Someone near the bar actually laughed. Elena Reyes didn't flinch. She had endured worse. She adjusted the baby carrier strapped across her chest and gently kissed the head of the twin on the left. "It's okay, Mateo," she whispered. "Mommy's got you." Then she shifted slightly to soothe his sister, Luna, whose tiny fingers clutched at her sweater. 6 months old. Born premature. Fighters since day one, just like her. The reservation was under his name. She hadn't even known what the restaurant looked like until she stepped inside. Her best friend had insisted she'd give dating another chance. "He's different," she had said. "Successful? Yes, but grounded." Elena almost turned around when she saw the chandeliers. She almost texted an apology and left. But tonight wasn't just a date, it was a test, because every man who had claimed to accept her situation disappeared the moment they realized her children were not. Temporary. The Mater D cleared his throat. "Ma'am, this establishment is," I invited her. The voice was calm, deep, certain. From a corner table near the window, a man stood. He wore no flashy watch, no obvious display of wealth, just a dark jacket and quiet confidence. Conversations shifted subtly as he walked forward. The staff straightened. A manager appeared almost instantly. "Elena," he asked gently when he reached her. She nodded. "And you're Adrian Cole." The name hit the room before she could process it. The whisper moved across tables like wind through tall grass. Adrian Cole wasn't just wealthy. He was the billionaire investor who had rebuilt half the downtown district. Owner of Cole Industries. Tech visionary. Philanthropist. A man featured on magazine covers beside presidents. And right now, he was looking at her twins like they were the only thing that mattered. "You brought them," he said softly. She lifted her chin. You didn't mention that. I didn't mention a lot of things." Her voice stayed steady, despite the stares. "Most men say they understand, until they see what understanding actually requires." A pause, not uncomfortable. Measured, Luna whimpered again. And before Elena could shift her weight, Adrian did something that made 3 nearby diners gasp. He crouched, on the polished marble floor. In a tailored jacket worth more than her monthly rent, he didn't touch the babies without permission. He simply smiled at them. "Hi," he murmured. "You must be the important ones." Mateo's crying slowed. Luna blinked at him, curious. Elena searched his face for irritation, for embarrassment. For calculation, she found none. "You're not bothered?" she asked quietly. He looked up at her. "By children? By what people will think?" His expression barely changed. "I stopped building my life around other people's opinions a long time ago." Behind them, the manager suddenly became overly attentive. A better table was offered. Complimentary champagne. The same staff who hesitated moments ago now smiled too. Brightly. Elena noticed. Adrian noticed that she noticed, and something unspoken passed between them. They moved to the table. The twins settled between them and the carrier. Small and warm and very real. For the first time since walking in, Elena allowed herself to breathe, but she didn't relax. Not yet, because the real test hadn't happened. Halfway through the meal, just as the room resumed its elegant rhythm, a woman approached their table, tall, impeccable, recognizable. "Elena," she said coolly, though they had never met. Then she looked at Adrian. "You didn't tell me you were bringing this?" The word hung there. This Elena knew the woman instantly. Victoria Langford, heiress, board member. Rumored future fiancé. The room quieted again. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Victoria, he said evenly, this is my date. Victoria's eyes dropped to the carrier. With twins? Yes, a faint laugh. Adrian, this isn't your image. There it was. The thing Elena had heard in different forms her entire life. Not your image, not your level, not your world. She reached for the diaper bag. It's fine, she said calmly. We were just leaving. Adrian's hand stopped hers. Not forceful, just certain. Sit, he said quietly. He turned to Victoria, his voice no longer soft. My image is not fragile, and neither is my judgment. Victoria blinked, unused to resistance. These children, he continued, are more welcome at my table than anyone who believes they're an inconvenience. A silence fell so heavy it felt physical. Victoria's face flushed. Around them, diners pretended not to listen, while absorbing every word. Elena's heart pounded. Not from humiliation this time, from something dangerously close to hope. Victoria. Left without another word, Adrian exhaled slowly, then looked at Elena. I'm sorry you had to witness that. She studied him carefully. Was she wrong? About what? About this not being your world. He leaned back slightly. Elena, I built my world, which means I decide who belongs in it. The twins stirred, then settled. She searched his eyes again. This time she found something she hadn't expected. Loneliness, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. Why agree to this date? She asked softly. With a single mother you'd never met? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the twins, then back at her. Because when your friend told me you refused financial help after your husband passed, when she said you worked 2 jobs and still found time to volunteer at the neonatal unit where your twins were born, his voice lowered. I wanted to meet someone who builds, not someone who inherits. Her breath caught. For the first time that night, her composure cracked just slightly. Mateo reached a tiny hand out from the blanket, and Adrian, billionaire investor. Untouchable, Icon offered him his finger. The baby gripped it instantly. Adrian didn't pull away. Instead, he looked at Elena and asked a question that shifted the air between them forever. May I see them again? Not as a courtesy, not as a date, as something more deliberate. Her heart pounded in her ears. This is where most men leave, she said quietly. When they realize we're a package deal? He nodded once. I don't want part of your life, Elena. His voice didn't waver. I want all of it. And then without drama, without performance, without witnesses understanding the weight of it, he asked softly, Can I be the father? The question did not sound like a fantasy. It sounded like responsibility, Elena. Didn't answer right away. The restaurant noise had returned, but it felt distant, like she was underwater. Mateo still gripped Adrian's finger. Luna blinked up at him with wide, unafraid eyes. Children could sense intention faster than adults ever could. Don't, Lena said finally, her voice steady but guarded. Don't say something that sounds beautiful in the moment. Adrian didn't flinch. I'm not trying to sound beautiful. You don't even know us. I know enough. She shook her head. You know a summary? You don't know the hospital bills. The nights one of them stops breathing and I sit upright until morning. You don't know what it's like when people look at you like you're a mistake. Her eyes drifted briefly toward the direction Victoria had walked. Adrian followed that glance. Then he did something unexpected. He stood up again, not dramatically, not for attention, but to remove his jacket. He draped it gently over the baby carrier where Luna's blanket had slipped. Cold, he said simply. It was such a small act, but small acts revealed truth. Why would you want this? Elena asked quietly. You have options. Women with pedigrees. Clean histories. No complications. A faint smile touched his face, but it wasn't amused. Complications are honest. Perfection is performance. She studied him, trying to find the angle. Wealthy men were used to acquisition. Beautiful things. Rare things. Did he see her as a project? A redemption arc? A charity case that looked good in headlines? "You're thinking, I want to rescue you," he said calmly. Her eyebrows lifted. "Don't you?" "No." His answer was immediate. "I want to respect you." The word landed heavier than love would have. Respect across the room. Few diners still glanced their way, curious, whispering. Elena was used to whispers. The single mother who didn't belong. The woman who arrived with children instead of elegance. But Adrian wasn't performing for them. He wasn't even looking at them. He was watching Matteo, who had now fallen completely silent, fascinated by the way this powerful stranger simply stayed still and present. "My father left when I was 8, Adrian said quietly. "Not because he couldn't provide. Because he didn't want the inconvenience." Elena's breath caught slightly. "I built everything I have," he continued, "because I promised myself I would never become a man who leaves when things are hard. And you think this wouldn't be hard?" She asked. "I know it would," for a moment. Neither of them spoke. Then Elena did something that surprised even herself. She unbuckled the carrier slightly and carefully lifted Luna out, placing her gently into Adrian's arms. Gasps echoed from a nearby table. The billionaire investor, holding a 6-month-old baby. He froze at first, instinctively careful. His large hands adjusted awkwardly until Luna's tiny head rested against his shoulder, and then she relaxed, as if she had been waiting for him. The tension in the room shifted. Not gone, but confused. This wasn't scandal. This wasn't spectacle. It was human. "You're being tested," Elena said softly. "If you disappear tomorrow, I won't break. I've survived worse, but they will notice." Adrian nodded slowly. "Then I won't disappear." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. In that moment, his phone vibrated on the table. The screen lit up with a flood of notifications, business alerts, investor calls, headlines. A photo had already surfaced online. A billionaire at a luxury restaurant, with a single mother and crying twins. The caption was less kind. Elena saw it in his eyes before she saw the screen. "This is where you decide," she said quietly. "Damage control or real life?" He picked up the phone, read the headline, then, calmly, he powered it off and placed it face down. "I've spent years controlling narratives," he said. "Tonight, I choose truth." The band resumed its music. Softer now, almost intimate. Luna stirred slightly in his arms, but didn't cry. Matteo reached for him again, and for the first time that night, Elena felt something she had forbidden herself from feeling. Not attraction, not security, possibility. "You don't know what tomorrow brings," she warned. "No," Adrian agreed. "But I know who I want at the table when it arrives." Elena looked at her children, then back at him. "Then prove it," she whispered. Outside, cameras had begun to gather. Inside, something far more important had begun to build. And neither of them yet understood how much the world was about to test that promise. By sunrise, the story was everywhere. A grainy photo, a dramatic headline, a narrative written by strangers, billionaire secret family, investor linked to mystery mother, scandal at exclusive restaurant. Elena stared at her phone in her small kitchen. Matteo balanced on her hip, Luna in a rocker beside the table. The kettle whistled, but she didn't move. She had known this would happen. Wealth never dated quietly. Her screen lit up again. This time, with a direct message from someone she didn't know. "Women like you trap men like him." She locked the phone, not because it hurt, because it didn't surprise her. Across the city, inside a glass tower that carried his name, Adrian Cole sat at the head of a boardroom table. 12 executives, 3 legal advisors, 1 crisis consultant. A large screen displayed the same photo Elena had just seen. "We need a statement immediately," the consultant insisted. "Distance yourself. Clarify, there's no romantic involvement. Investors are already calling." Adrian leaned back in his chair, hands folded. "And if there is romantic involvement?" he asked evenly. Silence. One board member cleared his throat. "Adrian, optics matter. Your brand is built on stability, precision, control. Control, Adrian repeated softly. Another executive spoke carefully. Sir, the woman's background is modest, single mother. Bakery employee. This could shift public perception. Adrian's eyes hardened slightly. Shift it where? The man hesitated before anyone could answer. Adrian stood. He walked to the window overlooking the city he had helped rebuild. Steel, glass, order. I didn't build an empire to become its hostage, he said calmly. Prepare a press conference. The consultant blinked. To deny, to clarify. Back in her apartment, Elena was changing Luna's diaper when there was a knock at the door. Her stomach tightened. She opened it cautiously. Adrian stood there. No cameras. No entourage, just him. You shouldn't be here, she said immediately. They'll follow you. I know. Matteo squealed from inside, recognizing his voice. Elena exhaled slowly. It's already starting, isn't it? Yes. And I'm not leaving. She studied him carefully. No sleep in his eyes. No hesitation in his posture. Come in, she said quietly. He stepped inside her world-tiny kitchen, second-hand couch. Baby formula stacked, beside unpaid bills. He didn't comment. He didn't flinch. He rolled up his sleeves and picked up Matteo without being asked. I have a press conference in 2 hours, he said. I'd like you there. Her head snapped up. Absolutely not. Why? Because I won't be displayed like proof of your morality. His jaw tightened, not in anger, but understanding. That's not why, he said. I want them to see that you are not a secret, not a scandal, not something I'm hiding. She shook her head. You don't understand what that will do to me? To them I do, he said quietly, which is why I won't speak for you. The room fell still. What does that mean? She asked. It means, if you stand beside me, it will be because you choose to. And if you don't, I will still stand there and say exactly who you are. Emotion flickered across her face, not fear. Not pride, trust trying to exist. You owe me nothing, she said softly. I know, and yet you're risking everything. No, he corrected gently. I'm defining everything. Matteo rested his head against Adrian's chest. Luna reached tiny fingers toward his watch. Outside, somewhere below the apartment building, a camera shutter clicked. The world was watching, and in less than 2 hours, it would demand an answer. Elena looked at her. Children, then at the man who had asked to be their father. Tell me exactly. What you're going to say, she whispered. Adrian met her eyes. The truth. And for the first time, she believed him. The cameras were already flashing when they arrived. Microphones stretched forward like weapons. Reporters called his name in rapid succession. Security struggled to hold the line. Elena, stay close to me, Adrian said quietly as they stepped out of the car. She had almost not come. She had stood in her apartment. For 10 full minutes, twins strapped securely against her chest, staring at the mirror. Not at her clothes. Not at her hair. At her courage. If she walked into this building, there would be no going back to anonymity. But if she didn't, the story would be written without her, so she came. The lobby of Cole Industries gleamed with cold perfection marble floors, towering glass walls. The company logo suspended in steel behind the stage prepared for the press conference. Executives stood off to the side. Tight smiles, masking tension. Among them, unmistakable in a tailored white suit, stood Victoria Langford. Her eyes locked onto Elena, assessing, calculating. Adrian stepped up to the podium. The room fell into expectant silence. He didn't begin with a joke. He didn't soften the moment. I've been advised, he said calmly, to distance myself from the woman standing beside me. A ripple moved through the crowd. Elena kept her chin lifted. They suggested that her background, her job, and her children might destabilize investor confidence. Gasps, murmurs, a few embarrassed glances. Among board members, Adrian's voice remained steady. Let me clarify something. If integrity destabilizes this company, then perhaps the foundation was weak to begin with. A reporter shouted, "Are the children yours?" "No," Adrian answered, without hesitation. "But I hope to earn the right to help raise them," the words echoed. Cameras flashed. Wildly, Victoria's composure cracked for the first time. Another reporter pressed forward. "Sir, are you concerned about shareholder backlash?" Adrian paused. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped away from the podium and walked to Elena, in front of every lens in the room. He adjusted the baby carrier gently where Luna had begun to fuss. Soft, careful, human. When he returned to the microphone, his voice carried something stronger than wealth. "I built this company on innovation," he said. "But innovation without humanity is hollow. Elena Reyes is not a liability. She is a reminder of why success should exist." In the first place, Elena felt tears press against her eyes, not from embarrassment, from being seen not as a project, not as a scandal, as a person. A board member hurried forward, whispering urgently, "Adrian, we need to reconsider." He didn't lower his voice. "No," he said clearly. "What we need is perspective." Then he delivered the sentence that froze the entire room. "If any investor believes compassion weakens profitability, they are free to withdraw. I will personally buy their shares." Silence. Absolute silence. Because everyone knew he could. The power in that moment wasn't financial. It was moral. Victoria stepped forward, unable to remain quiet. "You're risking billions over sentiment." Adrian met her gaze. "No," he replied evenly. "I'm choosing billions over emptiness." The press conference ended not with applause, but with something far more powerful: respect, as they walked out together. Reporters' questions changed tone. Less accusation, more curiosity. Outside, the air felt different. Elena turned to him once they reached the car. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," he said simply. "I did." She searched his face for regret. There was none. "Your stock might drop," she warned softly. "Then we'll build it back," he answered. "But I won't build it alone." For the first time since this began, Elena allowed herself to lean just slightly into his certainty. Matteo laughed suddenly. A bright, fearless sound. Adrian smiled down at him, and in that moment, the world's opinion felt smaller than the promise forming between them, but neither of them knew that the real test wasn't public. It was still coming, and it would demand more than bold speeches to survive. The stock dropped the next morning. Not catastrophic ally, not enough to collapse the empire, but enough for headlines to shift. Tone. Coal industries faces uncertainty. Bored. Tension after emotional press conference. Lena watched the numbers crawl across the news ticker while Luna slept against her chest. Matteo was on a blanket nearby, kicking happily, unaware that his future had become a financial debate. "You didn't sign up for this," Lena said quietly when Adrian arrived that evening. He looked tired, not defeated, but pulled in multiple directions. His tie was loosened. His phone hadn't stopped vibrating since dawn. "I signed up the moment I asked you that question," he replied. She turned off the television. "Your board met again, didn't they?" "Yes, and they offered me a solution." Her stomach tightened. "What kind of solution?" Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice even though they were alone. "They want me to step back temporarily. Issue a statement reframing everything. Slow the narrative. Create distance." Distance. The word felt heavier than scandal ever had. Elena swallowed. "And if you don't, they'll call a vote." She understood enough about corporate power to know what that meant. Even billionaires answered to structures. "You should do it," she said softly. He blinked. "Do what?" "Step back. Protect what you built. You don't owe us your empire." "I'm not protecting an empire," he said quietly. "I'm protecting my integrity." "But if they remove you, they won't. You don't know that." Long silence stretched between them. Matteo giggled, reaching for Adrian as he always did now. Without thinking, Adrian lifted him easily, settling him against his shoulder. The gesture was so natural it almost hurt. You think I can't survive without the title? Adrian said gently. But I built that company from one room and borrowed money. I can build again. Elena's voice cracked for the first time since she had met him. I don't want you to build again because of me. This isn't because of you. It is. No, he said firmly. It's because they mistook compassion for weakness. She turned away, blinking back tears. All her life she had survived by minimizing her footprint, not needing too much, not asking for space, and now loving her meant upheaval. You could have anyone, she whispered. Anyone who wouldn't complicate your board meetings. Adrian stepped closer. Do you know what complicates board meetings? He asked quietly. Ego, fear, men who measure worth by convenience. He gently took Luna from her arms, holding both twins now, one on each side. I measure worth by courage, he continued. And you walked into a storm knowing you'd be judged. That's not complication. That's strength. Her defenses trembled. What if this doesn't work? She asked. Then we will have failed honestly. A knock at the door interrupted them. Elena froze. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. When she opened it, 2 men in suits stood outside. Mr. Cole, one began politely. The board has called an emergency vote for tomorrow morning. There it was, the real test. After they left, the apartment felt smaller. Elena looked at him. If they force you out, they won't force anything, he said calmly. You're too calm. He smiled faintly. I've lost money before. I've lost partnerships. I've never lost myself. She stepped closer. And if tomorrow they make you choose? Adrian didn't hesitate. I already did. Rain began tapping softly against the window, the same sound that had followed her into that restaurant days ago, except now. She wasn't standing alone. Tomorrow would determine titles, but tonight determined something far more important, and neither of them intended to surrender it.